information. The, today's topic will be the informed citizenship. Um, Next slide, please. I am Tobias Wesley. Um, I, I currently serve on the board of directors and second committee of the ARC of Illinois. Also served on the Illinois Council of Development Disabilities. Former president of Self Apps Group, Possibility Partners, and past chair of the Illinois Self Alliance. Graduated partners in policymaking. Regularly speaks at Speak Up, Speak Out Summit. Has presented at the national events, including the Self Advocacy Beginning Empowered, known as SAVE, and the Tennessee Mega Conference. I was a long-time member of the maintenance staff group of what we was called South Star. Then we went to New Star now. It's Toma Star in Chicago Heights. Thank you for having me. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. A recording of this meeting will be sent out along with notes and links to the presentation within the week. Please keep yourself muted while our presenter is talking. Please leave questions to the end of the presentation. Capitalizing is available. Presenting the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom. Please be respectful, enjoy, have fun, and listen. Words to know: citizenship, belonging to a country and having rights, responsibilities, and having a voice in how it is governed. Disability justice, a way of thinking and organizing that centers disability people and works to remove barriers so everyone can live with dignity. Ableism, the belief of or practice that treats disabled people as less important, less capable, or less human. Northern interventionism, the idea of people should succeed on their own and that needs help means failure. Capitalism, an economic system where people and companies make money by owning business and properties, often value profit over people. Internationalism, the way different people or parts of a person identity like disability, race, immigration status overlap and affect their experiences. Marginalizing communities, a group of people who are pushed or aside or exile resources. Let's hear. Let's let's get to know Chris a little bit. Chris Ramos. He's a Latin and immigration community development organizer at Access Living out in Chicago. He leads the Community Valdez, a group of Latin immigrants with disability in organizing and advocating for system change. He brings experienced community organizing leadership training for Access Living, Lands Americas, and Chicago Community Learning Partnership. He grew up in Chicago as the son of Salvador and Guatemalan immigrants. They witnessed the interesting challenges of war, trauma, undocumented status, displacement, displacement, and disability. These experiences fueled their community to advocate and coalition building, grassroots advocating, working towards a future where immigrants and, disabilities are empowered to lead their latest change. Everybody, let's learn something from Chris Ramos. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Tavares. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, we get a chance to meet in person. Also, you're making me realize I probably need to work on some of that language, so it's a little bit easier to get through. So I apologize for that. So
That's
just a
okay.
a little bit about the organization that I represent. Access Living in Metropolitan Chicago is a disability service and advocacy organization based in Chicago. Hopefully, many of you are familiar with it. Since 1980, our organization has been challenging disability stereotypes, protecting civil rights, and champion social reforms to create an accessible and inclusive society for disabled people to live self-directed lives of their choosing. We offer vital services and supports for Chicagoans with disabilities, as well as consulting services to companies and nonprofits to help make their business practices more inclusive. We are a center for independent living, and the majority of our staff and board are people with disabilities. All right, today we're going to be talking about what citizenship means, why it matters, and how informed and active people protect democracy and the common good. Think this is a very important topic for these times right now. And I wanted to frame this presentation on a justice core truth about democracy, which is the quote that many of us know: "Nothing about us without us." As we know, this is not just a slogan; it's a democratic principle, right? This is actually a quote that has existed before the disability rights movement. Real democracy is measured by whether people most impacted by decisions have power in making them. Democracy is not inherited, it is built, defended, and expanded through collective action. Here we have a photo of ADAPT protesters. This is courtesy of the 1980s. The description of the photo is it's a black and white photograph. There are four organizers, starting from left to right. One is in a power wheelchair, has a white top, is holding a sign that says "Our families instead of nursing homes." I'm sorry, "Our homes instead of nursing homes." They are a person of color. And then sitting on the ground next to them is a white gentleman with eyeglasses, is wearing a dark t-shirt and dark pants, and they holding a sign that says "Free Our People." Next to them is another white gentleman with a dark t-shirt, dark pants, and a shirt that says "Hell no, we won't go to any nursing home." And then finally, we have a gentleman on the right side in a manual wheelchair. They are wearing a white t-shirt, uh, sort of darkish pants, and then they're holding a sign that says "Our homes, not nursing homes," and they have sunglasses on. Okay. Says citizenship and the common good. Unfortunately, most of us are not really taught how to be citizens, right? A lot of that education is no longer in a lot of schools nowadays. And because of that, many of us may not know what strong citizenship looks like. Citizenship is not just a legal status, it's important. It means having rights and responsibilities within a government that you pledge allegiance to and is supposed to protect you. It is meaningful access to rights, decision making, and belonging. Citizenship also means recognizing that we depend on one another. All people rely on care systems and one another. A society that values only productivity and sufficiency creates exclusion. Disability justice teaches that independence is not the goal, interdependence is, right? So all people rely on care systems and one another. A society that values only productivity and self-sufficiency, well, I already said that, I apologize. This shapes public policy and is especially harmful to people with disabilities. But the good news is that we have the power to change this. So let's talk about the responsibilities of citizenship. Citizenship includes political responsibilities. These include staying informed about public issues, voting responsibly, and supporting policies that benefit the broader community, not just yourself. So these responsibilities are not just about voting. The American system depends on informed people making thoughtful decisions. Voting without information weakens democracy. And I'm sorry, the visual description. We have a photograph here. This is a black and white photo again. This is from the 1990 Chattanooga transit protest in the summer. It's a gentleman in a manual wheelchair. He has his fist up in the air. He's wearing, looks like a bandana, looks like ice, sunglasses, a dark, looks like an Adapt shirt maybe, and looks like maybe some jeans. And then his sign says the largest minority. To the left of him, you can visibly see that there's a few other people with signs, but they're a little bit difficult to read. Okay, let's talk about some of the responsibilities of citizenship broken down. So, examples of an informed citizen, examples of questions that an informed citizen should ask are who benefits, right? So, who is benefiting from my vote? Right? That I'm giving to this individual. Who is excluded, right? Doing a little bit of research on the candidate and recognizing where they might not have supported or where they might not have voted in the past, right? Every vote that we make includes these types of decisions. And then who is harmed, right? Who ultimately will be harmed by my vote, right? And if there's anyone who will be harmed, it's up to us to make that informed decision on whether we want to vote for that particular candidate. The success or failure of the Constitution and representative government depends on its people, not just elected leaders. Democracy fails when disabled or other marginalized people are treated as an afterthought. So we have to make sure that when we vote for something that represents our values. Okay, so let's get into informed citizenship. So, in a representative democracy, participation matters, but informed participation matters more, right? We can all go to the voting booth and just vote for whoever, right? Just go down the line and just guess. Maybe we've heard a particular voice before, but informed participation is a more responsible way to participate in our democracy. Informed citizenship means understanding the issues, the candidates, and the systems that shape decisions. This includes learning about your elected officials and their policies. So know who represents you, even if you disagree with them. Public officials work for the people. Reading reliable news and voter resources. Local and state news is especially important because many decisions that affect daily life happen close to home. Reliable, nonpartisan resources, such as the last session, which mentioned Vote 411 from the League of Women Voters, is a great resource and can help explain ballot measures and candidates clearly. Understanding how laws impact your daily life is also important. Staying informed helps you form opinions based on evidence rather than misinformation. Becoming familiar with the United States and the Illinois Constitution. I know this might seem like a tedious task, but I assure you that it's so important to read these documents because they will directly explain your rights and the limits of government power. And I'll just briefly say, so I work in immigration work as a community organizer at Access Living, and we give many Know Your Rights sessions for people with for immigrants with disabilities specifically. And if we didn't understand what people's rights were and how to share those rights and how people can stay informed of their rights, then the people wouldn't know how to protect themselves in a situation that might be dangerous for them or their families. So I just wanted to add that in there. Next slide, please. So let's talk about active citizenship, right? So when I say the word active, this means so we informed ourselves, we learn more about the candidate. Active citizenship is going even further, right? So the digital world connects us to information and people, but they can also isolate us from real community engagement and meaningful dialogue. Democracy requires active citizenship. That means participating in community life to shape the future. So what we can do is we can start by identifying a problem that affects you, such as healthcare, housing, immigration, environmental justice, disability justice, uh, uh, whatever issue that you can, whatever problem that you can identify that affects you on a daily basis. And then what you want to do is you want to recognize when it becomes a shared issue. So, in what way does this impact the broader community, and how can I get the entire community to act on it together with me? You have to understand the intersectionality between them. So when we talk about intersectionality, What that means is how these issues overlap, how they intersect, how they might affect one person in one way more than another. So, for example, somebody who is Latinx and is a person with a disability is has an intersecting identity, right? Because not only are they an immigrant, right? Or maybe they're not an immigrant, maybe they're a Latinx person with a disability, but then also they care about disability justice, right? So both of those issues are going to be important to that particular person. And many of us have many different types of intersectionality in our lives. It's just our job to identify it. So what you can do with that information is you can then join organizations or groups that works on these issues. And what you want to do is research their history, their values, and their impact. And then you want to ask yourself a few questions. Are they a trusted uh, organization, right? Just do some research, try to look them up. Um, for sure, you'll be able to find articles about that particular organization, whether it be in the press, maybe they're mentioned on other websites. Do they align with my values, right? Is this an organization that is fighting for the things that I care about? Do I want to align with them, right? Not every single organization is going to going to check off those boxes for you. And do they center impacted communities, right? This is kind of a personal decision because you have to first identify what is your idea of an impacted community and whether it's important for you for that organization to make sure that that's a core value of their mission. Next slide, please. Did I freeze or did someone
No,
else freeze?
sorry. It's me.
No
Is
worries.
it this? Sorry, Chris. Is this the next slide or did it skip?
I believe it's skipped. Should be
Oh my gosh.
democracy. No
Sorry.
worries.
I don't know what happened.
Next slide
Okay,
after here. Perfect.
thanks.
Okay. So just a few other ways to activate your citizenship include teaching and sharing lived experience with others, right? Sharing our lived experience with other people, especially because sometimes we might be at an organization that, say, works on issues surrounding the African American community, but for example, maybe they don't have justice representation. You have the ability to bring that into that space by sharing your lived experience. Creating space for dialogue that are inclusive, right? That's super important. You want to make sure that when we're talking about different issues, that they're including all of us. Many of us in the disability community know that firsthand. Building awareness campaigns. So, do other people in your community know about this issue? And if not, how can you get them involved? Monitoring government actions, right? It's important to just keep checks on the government because, they don't always do the right things, unfortunately. Identifying local problems and unmet needs, um, developing community-led solutions, right? Making sure that any solutions that are being made with community input. And then lastly, organizing to change local policy, right? So how are you gathering with other people who are like-minded to change something that's affecting you and their daily lives? That goes back to identifying your issue, your community issue. So disability justice demands that impacted people lead. Next slide, please. All right, and here we have a very iconic photo of the Capitol crawl, which happened in 1990. This was about the fight for the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and if you haven't, if you're not already familiar with the Capitol Crawl, there's a lot of fantastic resources out there to learn more about it. Videos on YouTube as well. And here we have several activists. It looks like two activists who are climbing the Capitol steps. One of them is wearing a dark t-shirt and dark brown jeans. He's sort of lifting himself backwards to try to get to the top of the Capitol. They were trying to highlight how there was inaccessibility built in to the federal government. And then behind him is another individual who is on their hands and knees, also wearing a dark top and a dark t-shirt. At the top, we see a photographer aiming a camera at them, and then behind them, you can see the Capitol itself. So, very great photo. All right, so we're going to talk about civics as power literacy. Civics is the study, uh, sorry, let me start again. So trying to change society without understanding how it works is sort of like playing a game without knowing the rules, right? We have to understand the rules before we try to change the way that things are. And civics helps us do that. So, civics is the study of the rights and responsibilities of citizens and how government functions. This helps us learn how power operates and how to challenge it. Civic education helps people challenge unjust systems effectively rather than feeling powerless, right? It fills us with power because we understand how the system works and how we can go about changing it. Participation builds belonging and shared responsibility. So by participating in the civic process, we then become a part of the process and we share responsibility in it. And then we can sort of own our moment. People who engage civically are more likely to vote and organize to demand accountability. So just being somebody who just stays up to date with civic issues, you're going to be somebody who's more likely to vote, more likely to organize with your community, which is super important to create meaningful change. Civic participation strengthens democracy and helps government better reflect the will of the people, right? So the more people that with disabilities that are involved in the civic process, the more that the government can no longer ignore what are the needs of our community. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about political participation. So we have the power to choose leaders who make laws and policies that reflect our daily life. And we have to understand that elections have real consequences, and we have to make sure that we let our elected officials know that as well. So, different examples of political participation include accessible voting and registrations, right? So, not just voting, but also just making sure that your voting place is accessible. If it's not, make sure that you let folks know. Make sure that you let the election judges know. Make sure that you let your local elected officials know that they can do a lot more to make the process more accessible for everybody. Uh, Also advocating for things that matter to you. So again, just making sure that you are advocating for things that are impacting you on a daily basis. Joining or forming political or issue-based groups. We mentioned that a little bit earlier. Volunteering and supporting campaigns. That's another really great way to get politically involved. So, let's say that there's a particular candidate that you really like, that you believe they have a strong message. You can volunteer with them, reach out to them, send them an email, ask to speak with them after an event, ask to speak with one of their staffers and say, hey, I really believe in what you're doing. It really aligns with my values. How can I get involved? Attending town halls and public meetings. Y'all, this is a super important one. It's one of the most effective ways in which you can make sure that our elected officials know exactly how you feel immediately, right? Because election cycles, we have to wait for an election to come up, right? Whereas with town halls and public meetings, those are happening all the time, and they're almost always like you can go there. Obviously, hopefully, it's an accessible forum. If it's not, again, advocate for yourself. Reach out and let them know that it's not accessible to you. But please make sure that you go to these public meetings and town halls. It's very, very important to let our voice be heard. Speaking at city council or school board meetings, again, to my last point, super important to get involved in that way because they're happening on a regular basis. And many times they're talking about things that, whether you know it or not, affect you on a daily basis. A lot of times, sorry, I apologize if I'm going a little bit too fast, but a lot of times these town halls and public meetings, these city council meetings, school board meetings, these are actually issues that are going to impact you on a very local level. These are things that are going to affect you sometimes even more than some national issues. So just something to keep in mind. And then getting involved makes your voice harder to ignore. So the more of us that are representative in these spaces, the more that it makes our voice harder to ignore by the general public. Next slide. All right. So sort of to my last point, we're going to talk about local and state power. So most policies that impact you, such as housing, education, healthcare, transportation, and environmental policy, are made with your state and local governments. This can include things like housing codes, transit systems, healthcare access, emergency response. These are all examples of local decisions. We as citizens, we elect our governors, we elect our legislators, our mayors, our judges, and other officials. Um, it's also important to note that your legislators, you have your state legislators and you have your federal legislators, and they're both equally important. Residents also can serve on boards, commissions, and advisory councils that advise government leaders. Um, this is super important as well because we want to make sure that we have representation on those boards, on those commissions, and on those advisory councils. And if there isn't a place for a regular person to serve on those boards, let the board know. Let your voice be heard. Organize with others, and maybe you can get a spot on those boards, commissions, or advisory councils. Local engagement builds collective power. It deepens our understanding of local problems, and it leads to more effective solutions. Um, Participation on a local level makes government more responsive and accountable. Next slide. Here we have a photograph from 1989 in Atlanta, Georgia. This was the bus shutdown during an adapt action. We have a picture of two men in front of a Greyhound bus. There is a American disability. There's an American flag with a disability logo in it. Wheelchair Willie is the stars in the flag, and they are both in power chairs. One of them is wearing a black jacket, dark hat, white shirt, and jeans. The other gentleman is wearing a t-shirt, looks like a light t-shirt, dark jeans, and yeah, that describes the photograph. Working for the common good. So serving your community is a powerful form of citizenship. That means building systems that work for the most excluded. So, a few examples of that can be care work. So, for example, this is talking about um, people who are working towards the common good, right? And we know that unfortunately, people with disabilities are very much impacted by by employment opportunities. But these are also examples of people who may support our system as well. So, for example, care work is a super important one, right? People who support us in our daily lives. Education, obviously, education is super critical for the advancement of the common good. Public health, this can include nurses, doctors, um, even though we also have an issue with the medical model, right? But that's a topic for another slide deck. Volunteering, that's also an important way to sort of work towards the common good. Again, being involved with advocacy or community organizing is also super impactful for the common good. And it's important to know that the common good requires a shared responsibility, right? So we all are involved in making our democracy operate as best as possible. The more of us that are involved, the more that we're working towards the common good. And disability justice recognizes that care is essential labor and not charity. So that can be a different perspective for some people, unfortunately. But thank you. And then next slide. Okay, let's talk about challenging the system. So, popular sovereignty means that the people hold the ultimate power and have the right to resist injustice, right? History shows that the government at times has failed to protect everyone, but people working together have always pushed it to do better. Active citizenship includes knowing when and how to challenge unjust systems, right? Sometimes you have a very important opportunity to create meaningful change, and you have to strike at that moment when the moment presents itself. And that might mean activating a bunch of people at the same time with very short notice. So it's just important. That's another reason why it's important to always stay informed with these issues because you never know when is the right opportunity to move on a particular issue unless you're keeping up to date with everything that's going on. It's important to note that violence undermines democracy and civil discourse. So, nonviolent action has driven disability and civil rights forward. That includes assembly, which basically means gathering with other people for meaningful change, direct action, and protest. Social change has often come from organizing and can happen inside systems or outside them. Both strategies are valid and often necessary. People can work within the system all, as well by running for office, supporting candidates, or shaping laws. If something is wrong, you have the right and responsibility to work for change. Next slide.
Can you see the next slide?
I know it off the top of my head if you want me to
Okay,
do that.
it pops up on my screen. I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi. I'm so sorry, everyone.
No worries.
It's like
So there's
showing
only
the right slide, but
Yeah, no worries. There's only one more slide, y'all. And basically it's just a call to action, right? So, okay, there we go. Call to action is it's a term that we use in community organizing, and what it means is you always want to close with sort of encouraging other folks to act on something meaningful. Citizenship involves solving shared problems and is a collective responsibility. Democracy only survives when people stay informed, engaged, and accountable. The government is one actor among many. It's real solutions require communities, organizations, and people working together, not just the government. Again, ways in which you can get involved, just stay informed, learn constitutional principles, and monitor public officials, and hold your leaders accountable through voting and lawful action. Citizenship definitely should not be taken for granted. And that's the end of the presentation. Oh, okay. This is the other part. And then lastly, we have a photo. This is from the Washington, D.C. Wheels of Justice March in 1990. Several people are marching, um, and several of them are wearing similar. Actually, it looks like most of them are wearing the similar T-shirt, light with a sort of dark circle, sort of like no to something. And then we see a few signs there. We shall overcome. Access is a civil right. There's a guide dog uh, leading somebody who's visually impaired, as well as several people in manual wheelchairs. But there's a lot going on in that picture, so I probably won't get the full description. But that is know that it's a march towards meaningful change. And now I believe we are here for questions and answers.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. Amazing presentation, Chris Ramos. Now, does anybody have questions for Chris Ramos about his presentation? Now would be the time to answer them. You can take yourself off mute, or you can chime in the chat. We are all ears.
Okay, so what are the best ways to learn about local town halls? That's a great question. So I would recommend, I don't know if we very clearly mentioned this because I know that this is a whole series, but you want to make sure that you look up who are your local elected officials, and then almost all of them are going to have some kind of newsletter. That might be through the mail or online, and in many of those newsletters, they're going to send you out a notification when a town hall is happening nearby. It's almost always going to be somewhere locally to you. This is another important thing about self-advocacy because sometimes they might choose a venue that is not accessible. Make sure that you shoot them an email, write them a letter, give them a call, and tell them, hey, I want to make sure that can you ensure me that this space is compliant with ADA accessibility? They'll tell you whether it is or isn't. Jennifer, I see your hand up.
Sands here with the ARC. I also had a question about town halls. A lot of times I'm really good once I've done something before, but I've never been to a town hall. My local uh, representatives don't do a lot with them. How do you prepare for that? I don't even really know what one looks like. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, so that's an interesting point that you bring up, Jennifer, because we at Access Living have actually like we create our own town halls, and let's not be scared about the word town hall. All a town hall is just a big meeting with a lot of people who are interested in a particular topic. So, for example, any one of you are welcome to actually host a town hall, right? You would start by finding a venue that is big enough, that is accessible enough. Obviously, you want to have enough volunteers that are going to be able to share the responsibility of whatever the town hall is about. Almost all town halls are centered around a very specific topic, right? So, for example, last year we did a transportation town hall, we did a healthcare town hall, and you want to outline the agenda, right? What are you going to be talking about? What are the topics that you want to talk about? And then the really cool thing is that you get to invite elected officials, right? The ones that you might want them to come and speak at this town hall. And some of them will say yes, and some of them will say no, but you'll almost certainly have enough people in order to be able to do the town hall. And then you just have to think about logistical things, right? Like, do I have enough seating? Do I have water, snacks? Depending on who's registering, do I have an ASL interpreter? Do I have some Spanish speakers that might need Spanish interpretation? Am I able to secure that funding somehow through either grants, local elected officials, local organizations? So again, town hall is something that you can definitely work on. In terms of just going to a town hall that might not be one that you're hosting, that mostly just consists of you're going to show up. They're going to have a lot to say. And then there's almost going to be a portion that's like, okay, here's the part for public comment. Just make sure that you're taking some notes. Make sure that you have your question ready. I like to always jot it down on my phone because it just gives me, a little bit more confidence once I'm about to present my question. And then just give your question with confidence because honestly, the most important thing about giving a comment at a town hall is that you're included, right? Because if we don't meet the moment of giving our opinion when we are at a town hall, that's one voice that they didn't get to hear that is super important. Robert, I see your hand up. I should call you Bob. What's up, Bob?
Uh, talking about your town hall, I've been to several of your virtual ones, and I really enjoyed your presentation. Uh, and the question is, uh, uh, when you go to a town hall that this person, depending on where it is, does the organization that is doing the town hall, uh, um, how how long are usually town halls? Are they usually 2 hours, 3 hours?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bob. So Bob asked uh, how long is a town hall usually? Town halls typically you want them to be about 2 hours. You don't want them to be longer than that because, frankly, people's attention for sitting down and listening to people talk for 2 hours. is a, it's a long time to have people sit and sort of focus on one particular topic. Um, I Another thing that we have been thinking about that is important about town halls is if you're hosting your own town hall, you get to decide the structure of it, right? So if you want more engagement from the crowd, you can totally do that. You don't have to do a town hall like everybody else does town halls where it's like yakety yak yak, and then we get to hear from elected officials and they get to, pander to us. You don't have to do that. You can flip it, maybe you have the elected officials sit in the crowd and maybe you have, very impacted people at the front. Who's we are the citizens. We create the rules, and whether they want to show up or not, you obviously want to make sure that you explain to them the format and whatnot. But because that's super important. Don't whether this is I should mention this about town halls since we're talking about it. Make sure that like in your description, in your uh, communication with whoever you decide to invite, with everybody who's involved, be transparent. Don't do any like gotcha stuff. Like, don't suddenly come out and talk about something that they were caught off guard for. That's not a polite thing to do. You can do that when you go to another town hall. That's totally fine. Like, if you feel like they're not talking about something that you care about and you want to call them out publicly. You can totally do that. When you're somebody who's showing up to one. When you're hosting one, that's a little bit different. The rules are a little bit different. I'm not
Thank
following
you.
all of the
I see a
chat
few
here.
questions in the chat. Tavares, do you want me to read them, or Chris, do you have them?
I can see. So let's see. Susan says, does anyone endorse candidates in Illinois for residents looking to vote for candidates that will fight for residents with disabilities and advocate for policy for residents? So that yes, so that's a two-part answer. So yes, there are lots of people. Elected officials endorse other elected officials. Organizations. So 501(c)(3)s, if I'm not mistaken, they do not endorse candidates. So they stay out of the political process. So that Access Living would be an example. Access Living does not endorse candidates in Illinois. However, there are definitely resources online that you can find that will show you different people who have been endorsed. One that just pops up into the top of my head is I read Politico, so I get Politico. It's a P. Let me see. Politico. I'm putting in the chat. I think it's politico.com. But Politico is it's a news website, and they really get involved in very local issues. So you can sign up for like the Illinois um, newsletter of Politico. You'll get it in your email inbox, and they'll constantly tell you, "Hey, so and so candidate was endorsed." Who elected officials oftentimes get endorsed by is by unions. Unions will endorse people. Newspapers will endorse people. So I would say to the second part of your question, like who would be a resource residents with disability? I'm sorry, who would be like a resource that you can find that is endorsing like the topics of disabilities and advocate for policy of residents. I would say you're going to have to do a little bit of research on that, unfortunately. If anyone has any resources who's in this room, feel free to drop it in the chat. Again, they're looking specifically sort of towards our community. But let me also, because again, I really hope that if you walk away with anything about this presentation, it's about getting involved. There's this uh there's this great resource. You don't have to look it up, but it's like it's called Girl I Guess Voter Guide, right? Somebody created it. You don't need to know what it's about. My point here is that it's a normal everyday person who created that voter guide. You can be that person, right? Of course, it's going to take work, right? It's going to take like you're going to have to stay up to date on issues. You're going to have to like do some research, get informed. Maybe it's going to require you going to town halls and asking them specific questions. But you can be that voter guide. You can put that online and be a resource for the community. And guess what? A lot of people are going to pay attention to what you have to do. So if somebody isn't already doing that, you always have the power to be that person. Let me see. An individual here would like to know if the right to vote extends to individuals in prison or who are criminals. Um, Off the top of my head, I do not know in Illinois, but I do know that in many, many states, well, this is my personal opinion. This is not the opinion of the ARC or of Access Living or of any of the other organizations who are involved here. But I think it's a shame that people who are incarcerated don't have the right to vote because, frankly, I don't think just because you are incarcerated, you should be taken out of the election process. Especially because at the end of the day, those people are being impacted by decisions made by people. So for me, I always personally feel that representation is important. We all deserve to have representation in government. And it's important that our elected officials know that. Again, that's my personal opinion. But if somebody can drop that in the chat if Illinois is specific, I should know that off the top of my head. So shame on me, but I do not have the answer right at this moment. Jennifer, I have found other local state representatives or senators who have town halls that we can attend. So I attended Sharon Chung's town hall, even though she's not my rep. Yeah, you can totally do that. Why not? You can go to other town halls, even though they're not your representative, because you you might be impacted in some way that you might not necessarily know, right? For example, attending a town hall in Chicago, Chicago has a big footprint, right? In like the surrounding collar counties. So, might want to be something that you would get involved with. I found her on my library. Okay, say the name of the voter guide again. Which you're talking about Politico or Girl I Guess? Yeah, the Girl I Guess voter guide. That's what it is. Again, it's just a one particular voter guide out of many. Okay. In Illinois, you can vote with a past conviction, but not if you are currently serving sentence. So that's what I figure. So again, but again, as a challenge to all of us, we can change that. If it's something that enough people
I don't know
feel this
about
should be different, that can be something that's changed.
I don't know about the probation part though, because I had a brother that was on probation that he got in trouble for actually voting, and he was on probation. I didn't believe it at first, but I read up on it. And sure enough,
I'll say it again. I think it's a shame. I think we should all have representation in voting. So I'll leave it at that. Jennifer Sands put a wonderful know your rights about criminal record PDF in the chat. I will definitely be clicking on that and downloading it. Super important to have. All right. Does anyone have any other questions? All right. Well, oh, there we go. The Girl I Guess voter guide has been linked in the chat. Thank you all so much for having me. This was an absolute pleasure to be a part of. If you have any other questions that might not have answered, my email is at the top there, cramos@accessliving.org. I also am a community organizer with Access Living if that's something that you would like to get involved with. We fight on issues such as economic justice, housing, transportation, healthcare, immigration. Please get involved with us if it's something that's local to you, or if you live within Cook County, because we largely work on things in Cook County, but we also work on state and federal issues as well. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
okay. Coming up next, look for your legislator and current legislator February 2nd at 10 a.m. How to submit a witness slip. That's February 9th at 10 a.m. Craft your elevator speech. That is February 17th at 10 a.m. Arrange a meeting with your legislator February 23rd at 10 a.m. Discussing political issues with civilization. That is March at 10 a.m. March 2nd. How to become a law at the federal and state levels. That is March 9th. This is all the Common Homegrown Coalition events that's coming up for February and the beginning of March. And let's give Chris another round of applause for another astounding and pre- presentation that he did. And we will be sending out meeting recordings, slides, resources, and vocabulary words after the session. Again, let's give Chris Ramos another round of applause. He did an estimated job. Thank you to our sponsor, the Illinois Council on Developing Disabilities. You all has been great, and that was a fantastic webinar. If anybody don't have any other questions, let us know what you thought about the webinar. I think there's a survey at the end. Contact us, let us know what you think. If there's not any more questions, you all have a blessed day and a good day and good.